Alright, this is going to be a quick and dirty crash course on firewalling. So, grab your favorite firewall character and go outside town and find a pouring or something and smack it. Where are you, pourings? Yeah, just give it a smack. Well, okay, don't kill it. Like that. It needs to survive. Let's find another one. He'll do. Alright, and then just run around and sort of observe how he chases you. This is how we're going to learn about monster AI. Pretty much all monsters have this AI, this chase AI, where they try to get within melee range if their range is melee, and then they'll just hit you. But notice how he's always on my corner. He's never like perfectly aligned with me. Well, not never. If I line up with him, he'll stay aligned with me. See? See, the monster's not picky. He'll hit me from the corner, from the center. As long as he can get within one cell of me, he'll stop and try to hit me. And that's essentially the movement we're trying to abuse. Not abuse, but take advantage of with firewall placement. So the simplest way to firewall is to just put it between you and the monster. He'll walk right into it, and that works perfectly fine. Got him. So let's talk about firewall for a second. Get away from him. So firewall is made up of three cells of fire. See, 1, 2, 3. And it's always 3, unless one of them gets used up. I guess I should say a new firewall is made up of 3 cells of fire. A cell is just this green square. It's one point on the grid of the map that you can stand in. So, the point of vertical firewall is to get the most damage and duration out of your firewall as you possibly can, because that's more efficient for SP usage. So if we did like a basic firewall usage like I showed you before, where we just place it between us and the monster, only one cell of the firewall is getting used, and that's this one. Once all 10 hits of this cell are used up, the monster will just pass through the wall, and the other 2 cells of fire never get used. So that's why we do it vertically or horizontally. So let me find a stronger monster, and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, this is a great place to practice firewalling. There's some really slow monsters here called punks. I'm inside the Aldebaran Clock Tower, I should say that first. Let me show you how to get here. So, here's Aldebaran. Just go up the middle. Here's the clock tower. Go in the portal. And you walk through here, try to dodge the batteries and whatnot. It's usually pretty clear. It's a highly trafficked area. And you go in this portal, and you're here. This is where the clocks and the punks are. So I'm gonna find a punk. Alright, here's a punk. It looks like I got them all to myself. So I'm gonna do a really... Oh man. Come on, you Mentum. You ruin everything. Alright, here we go. So he's taking about 12? Yeah, I think it's like 12 hits to break through one cell of fire. And then he just passes through the whole thing. So it's not what we want. So based on my relationship, my positional relationship to the monster, I can predict exactly which cell he's trying to get to. And then place the firewall horizontally or vertically so that he will have to walk through all 3 cells of fire to get to me. Punks have a slow movement speed, so they don't actually make it through all 3 cells before the wall expires. But you'll see with clocks that they certainly do. They're certainly fast enough. I went to the edge of the screen, so that didn't work out. There, that was a good example. So that's it. That's the reason people like to do vertical firewall instead. I got a lot more damage for my SP. And I was safer for a longer period of time. So long that you can even sit after you place it and just regenerate enough SP to cast another one. So you can firewall forever. Let me try it on this guy. So right now he's trying to get to this cell right here, so that he can hit me. Now he's trying to get to this one. I can move to this side of the wall, and he's still trying to get to the same cell. But sometimes you'll want to move to the other side of the wall, because it's a more advantageous position for you. If, say, a punk spawned like right up here, and he was coming after me, moving to here would run away from him and buy me a little bit more time to kill this guy, the one that's caught in the firewall. But it would still maintain the firewall position so that I'm safe from both of them for a couple seconds. So what I just did, I'll explain in a second. When you cast firewall on to the right of yourself, it'll be vertical. If you cast it below yourself, it'll be horizontal. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's a vertical one. It's a horizontal. Above yourself would also be vertical. I mean, horizontal. So, if you cast it directly on yourself, it'll be vertical. And that's just good to know, too, because sometimes you won't be able to cast it to the left or right of you. Like here. Just be on a wall. Or in like a really tight corridor. But you gotta keep track of your camera angle. Because the firewall doesn't care what camera angle you're using. Like if I have my camera like this is still up and down. This direction here is up and down, according to the firewall. So I generally don't even turn my camera much when I'm firewalling, playing a firewall character, because that's an easy trap to fall into. What else was there? There's got to be more that I can talk about. Oh right, so attack ranges. Something else you should know. So most monsters in the game have a range of 1, like this clock. They want to get this close to you in order to hit you. So let's pretend I'm the monster trying to get through this firewall. When I hit the fire, I'm going to bounce off of it. I'm going to step into it and then bounce off of it and try to step into it again. And when I step into the fire, when the monster steps into the fire, he's actually able to hit anything that's standing in this cell in front of him, because his range is 1. For the split second that he occupies the fire cell, he can actually reach to here. And that goes for all the cells. When he's trying to step in the last cell, there's a split second where he occupies this cell and he's able to hit you standing here. So, it's good to leave a space between yourself and the firewall, so that way the monster can never reach you, no matter which stage he's at. There are some monsters who have more than 1 range, like dryads or maybe mermans. So for those, you want to stand a little further back than 1 cell, maybe 3. And if you run way back, way further than you need to, it's wasteful with your space. But sometimes you just have enough space that it doesn't matter. See, I'm about to hit a wall here, so I'm running out of space. So I might step forward to give myself a little more space. Enough time to kill him. Alright, so I'm going to show you what happens when you don't leave a space between you and the firewall. When he starts getting hit by the last cell, he'll hit me. Yeah. And as a mage, often 1 hit is all the monster needs to kill you, because mages are squishy. Let's see, what else? Oh, placement of the firewall. I kind of didn't really go over that, but it's probably the most important thing. Where you're standing when you place the firewall is really important. So if I'm standing here and I just place it like directly right of me, anywhere on this x-axis, it'll be perfectly vertical. And likewise with the y-axis, it'll be perfectly horizontal. But if I place it anywhere off of those axes, it could be diagonal, which we don't want. We want to avoid diagonal walls like this. Even just a 1 square off sometimes can just make it diagonal. That one's pretty good though. So, diagonal walls, if you accidentally place a diagonal wall, which is just going to happen sometimes, you can still work with them to get the most usage out of them, to get efficiency out of them, or most of the efficiency out of them. So if you understand the positioning, so let's say a monster is coming to attack me on this axis, this y-axis here. he's going to get hit by this cell of fire. And I can sort of count the hits or judge the duration. So when I feel like the hits are mostly depleted on this piece of fire, I can step over here. And now the monster will try to get through the middle piece of fire. And when I feel like that one's almost depleted, I can step here. And they'll try to get through the last piece of fire. But yeah, obviously timing is important if you're going to do that. But that just comes with practice. I mean, it's different for every monster too. Like ones with really fast movement speeds, like clocks, go through the fire a lot faster than ones with slow movement speeds, like punks or steeds. Another thing you probably want to feel out before you commit to it is how many firebolts can you get off before the firewall expires. Because you always want to place a new one before the old one expires. Uh-oh. I'm in trouble. I'm out of potions. I had to bail. I'm playing Ragnarok restart server. The mechanics are kind of weird here. So I'm able to actually get two level 10 firebolts off before my firewall expires versus a clock. But it's kind of cutting it close. Like I have to be really quick with the replacement. Alright, another thing we need to talk about is difficult positions. So this right here, I wouldn't call it a difficult position. This is actually equal in all directions. I'm perfectly diagonal with the monster. So let's pretend this egg was coming after me. There are two acceptable places where I could place the firewall. To the left of me, and then I move up, or below me, and then I move right. Either one is equally fine. Usually I would just judge my surroundings up here. If I have more space in one direction, I would probably go that way. Because sometimes you need to firewall a few times. So you need more space for that. So you just judge your space. But other times you have more difficult positions, like this is perfect. If this is perfectly diagonal, what about like this? Actually, no. This is easy. This is perfectly horizontal. So you just place it there and go here. Okay, this is a good example. So we're mostly to the right of the monster, but we're also above the monster, a pretty decent distance. We could place the firewall here, and that would work. But when the monster makes contact with the wall, he's chasing us as we move up. So he's going to make contact with the wall in the center of it, instead of at the back of it, like we want. And that still works. If he gets caught in the center, that'll still work, and it'll protect you with all three cells of the firewall, because he gets knocked back to the first one anyway. But if we were, say, directly here, to the right of it, and we tried to do a vertical, and we stepped here, the monster would make contact with the wall at the top of it, and it would knock him back, but not into the other cells of fire. So after he eats up the top cell of fire, he would get to attack us. So that's something you want to avoid. If you're mostly to the right of it or mostly above it, judge the best you can. And sometimes you'll have to go with the terrain will force you to choose a crappy option. Like if there's a wall to the right of me and I can't even go right, I'm forced to place it there and move up. And then I have time to place another one. And that'll fix it. That'll get you out of some hairy situations. Alright, 2 more things and then I promise I'm done. So, sometimes you have to do a panic firewall. This is what I call them. So a monster will spawn on your screen and you have to react really quickly. Don't even worry about doing a vertical. Unless, I mean, when you get really good, you'll just do verticals anyway. But when you're just starting out, just throw down any firewall to protect yourself, because you don't want to die. And then after he gets caught in that one, it buys you a little more time to set up a vertical, if you want to. There's no shame in that. I definitely do that still, sometimes. The other thing is passive and aggro monsters. So dealing with passive monsters, you can actually just set up the vert before you aggro it. But like that example right there, he changed positions before I got to aggro him. So he completely dodged the wall. So there's a little bit of risk if you're going to set it up before you aggro him. But for something like clocks, the way you can sort of circumvent that problem is wait until they've just finished an idle movement. So I'm going to wait for him to move one more time. And that guarantees that he's going to stand still for a second. Long enough for me to set up the wall and piss him off. See, that was a little late. Oh, I just thought of something else. Apparently on this version of Ragnarok, fire monsters, they try to walk through fire. But there are 4 different stages of every element. So I think unless he's fired 3 or 4, I'm not 100% certain about this, but I think like fire 1 and fire 2 still get hurt by fire damage, but it's greatly reduced. Like that was super weak because he's a fire property monster. And these are all really weak because he's also fire. But if they're like a high level of fire element, like fire 3 or fire 4, they can just walk right through the fire without taking damage. So yeah, don't do that. Undeads. Let me go find some undead monsters. Here we go. Here's a fire monster. See? He doesn't care about the fire. Alright, so you probably saw me do this earlier, but undead monsters walk through fire just like fire monsters do, but they take full damage from it, and they even take extra damage from it because they're weak to fire. So if an undead monster like this skeleton is standing still, you can make sure he takes all 12 hits of the firewall by just casting it right on top of him. Yeah. So this is a Munak. He's undead. And he's gonna walk through the firewall. Take extra damage and everything. It's pretty nice, but it's dangerous because the firewall doesn't tank for you. It doesn't slow him down at all. It just does damage really fast. So if you're gonna avert firewall, undead stuff, the vertical method is really important for getting damage efficiency. Since they walk through the wall, don't mob too many, or they'll kill you. Let me show you an example here. See how I didn't even stop? Like I knew they were just gonna keep gunning for me. Ooh. I brought some delicious apples though. Alright, another important thing about Firewall is that boss tagged monsters walk right through it, but they do take full damage from it. So sometimes it's a good way to kill them, but I wouldn't recommend it for Abbey Knights. Yeah, Grimtooth is a thing. But for something like Ghost Ring, it's really good because you don't even need to bring the Ghost Ring out of stealth, out of hiding. If you understand the movement completely, you just know he's going to go through it without even seeing him. These batteries, man, they'll get you every time. So I was looking at the replay, and I thought I saw the Abbey Knight bounce off the firewall. So I'm going to test it here. Come here, you. Okay, so I'm not sure why it works that way, but it didn't used to, but it does now. So yeah, I guess boss monsters, or at least Abbey Knight, doesn't walk through the firewall. He bounces off of it, which some exciting possibilities there. Sometimes you'll just want to reposition around the terrain. Another thing that's really helpful, not just for firewalling, but it's important for firewalling, but it applies to pretty much every skill in every class, is animation canceling. So you'll notice when I do any sort of spell or skill, my character does this wiggle animation, where he's like casting magic or whatever. And this animation forces you to stand still for its duration. So a lot of micro in this game is just centered around canceling that animation. And the way you cancel it is to just issue a move command immediately after you use the skill. And you can move. So just yeah, practice it with first aid in town or whatever. It might take a lot of practice to sync up your left and right hands to be able to do it consistently. And sometimes you'll just mess up. It happens to everybody. Sometimes when you're pulling monsters, more than one of them, they'll get tired and do this sweat 2 animation where it just kind of shoots water, and they'll stop following you when they do that. So if you want, you can like swing around and hit him with a quick spell like Firebolt level 1, just to aggro them again. Sometimes if you have like a really big mob, like 8 or more, it's just gonna happen. Like you have to let the monster fall off and move on without him. Especially if you can't get a good position on him. A good position to go pick him up. Yeah, here we go. This is a good example. I don't screw it up. There's just too many. Like there's always gonna be somebody getting tired, and I've got to forget about them. But you always got to keep in mind the monsters around you, because when they fatigue like that, they become a liability. They can always re-aggro you if they see you. And then sneak up behind you and get you. So just be mindful of your surroundings. That's all I can say. Another use for Firewall is for moving immobile monsters. So this Geographer, for example, he can't move, but Geographers heal each other. So if you find a group of Geographers, sometimes it's just impossible to kill them unless you separate them. So if you Firewall right on top of one, you can move it. But the catch is you can only move it down. You can never move it sideways or up. So yeah, every cluster of Geographers becomes a little puzzle. So in situations like this, at higher level, when I have the SP to support it, I think Fireball is the most damage, because there are 3 targets. But since I don't have the SP to keep doing this for a long time, I need to focus fire them with Firebolt, so that way my firewalls last longer. Stepped out of line. So now I'm completely out, and I just have to sit between walls. Well, it wasn't quick, but it was certainly dirty. That's Firewall. I hope it was helpful, and yeah, get out there and burn some things.